There is nothing worse than getting to your sketchbook, making a couple of marks, maybe some journaling, some doodles, whatever, and being frustrated with what you're making. There is nothing worse than going to your easel, putting up a new canvas, and staring at it, being like, what am I doing? And then you make a couple marks, you get out your colors, you do something, and you're like, maybe this will turn into something. Because sometimes that works. Sometimes you can make some marks and it'll turn into a piece of artwork that you're actually proud of. But oftentimes it leaves you in a frustrated mess. I'm going to tell you a secret. I haven't been without ideas or a plan for my artwork in years. And the system that I have in place to ensure that I keep having ideas is one I'm going to give to you today. This system I have for you today will guarantee that you always have ideas, that you always know what you're going to make next, that you always have something that will continue your education, to continue improving your skills, to continue making art. This is Brushwork. Friends and foes, welcome to Brushwork Podcast. My name is Stephanie Scott, and today we're talking about the art improvement list. This list that I have, actually it's two lists, has made my art life so much better. It's made it so much easier, and I always have ideas on what to work on next, and I want to get into it with you. When we're feeling frustrated with our artwork, usually there's two reasons. And the first one that I'm not going to get into today is an emotional block. Sometimes we're in grief, sometimes we're hungry, sometimes we've got other things pressing on us that stops us from really making art and stops us from giving our ideas the freedom to bloom. We're not going to dive into that today. That'll be a future video. But the second thing is something we are going to address. And this item is when your technical skills don't match up to your ideas. A lot of times you're going to find frustrations when what you want to happen on the canvas, on the page, doesn't line up with your ideas. And you are painting and you're trying to get something and the line isn't working and the edge isn't working and the value isn't there and the abstraction is doing weird things that you don't intend to do. And you're like, maybe this is fine, but really it's just sloppy. The heart of the matter, the heart of being frustrated with your artwork and not having ideas of what to work on next comes from a lack of technical progression. I've been making paintings for over 10 years, and I am no longer a beginner in making art, but I still go back to some things that will help me continue to move forward as I go towards mastery. I intend to make art for the entirety of my life, so I'm hopefully looking at another 30 years of art making down the road, and I want to continue improving my skills every time I make something. You're going to turn this session that you have that started with frustration and turn it from art making into art training. This list is a training list. It's a list of ways that you can improve your work, and it's going to give you specific things to work on so you never are without something to do. Sometimes we have to let creativity take a backseat. You have to let yourself train, almost like an athlete, to make your skills better so that you can actually execute your ideas competently. Have you ever looked at your artistic weaknesses? Have you ever looked at what you need to improve in your creative work, or have you just created just for fun? There's nothing wrong with creating for fun. In fact, that's what gets us into art making in the first place. But when you look critically at your creative weaknesses, you are able then to move forward on them, take your weaknesses and make them into your strengths. Because once you have creative strengths, once you have skills that are beyond beginner levels, you're going to be able to make things that are so much cooler than you are able to make right now. This is what the exercise is. And while you're listening to this, go get your sketchbook. You're going to make two lists, and we're going to do this together. Here is the art improvement list. This exercise is pretty simple when it comes to mechanics. You're going to have two lists, one which is materials and the other one which is skills. We're going to start with materials, and this will be your shorter list. On your material list, I want you to write down every material that you own and want to work with in the future. So things like oil painting, which is mine, gouache paint, color pencils, gold leaf, charcoal pencils, sketchbook, and inks. This list is going to tell me the what I'm going to use. Sometimes you'll already know what you want to use when you come to a session and use the art improvement list. However, sometimes you don't. Maybe you'll just do this first and then you'll make whatever it says. Put down all the materials that you want to use, plus all the materials you think would be fun to use in the future, or maybe anything that you have just lying around in your studio that you're like, ooh, this could be fun. These are things I normally use. I'm adding gouache paint number 2 on my list because it's something I'm doing more often lately. You might add collage, you might add jewelry work, you might add sculpture, you might add just so many things you could add. The more specific you get with the materials, the better this exercise is going to work out. All right, so once you get all your materials down, you're now going to write down all of your skills that you want to learn. Now, this one's really important. Think about your creative weaknesses here. Think about, when I get critiques, what are people telling me that I need to improve on? Do I need to work on my value study skills? Do I need to work on my atmosphere? Do I need to work on different color theory tones? Do I need to work on my complementary sets? Do I need to work on line work? You get what I'm saying here, right? You're going to write down as many as you can think of. And don't worry if they don't match up directly with your materials list just yet. Think of these things as, what would you want to improve in general? Okay, I've just filled out an example list. This is mostly things I would do, but I would add even more. Let's go through them. When I look at this list, I have my materials. I've got oil painting, gouache, color pencils, gold leaf, charcoal pencils, sketchbooks, and inks. On my skill side, I have value scales, which is when you take your darkest dark to your lightest light and you do them with a number of steps in between. I'm looking on improving my line specificity. I'm looking on doing more blind contour because I know that helps my hand-eye coordination. I know that when I do a landscape painting, my edges sometimes get a little monotonous. I know I need to break them up, so working on my edges would be excellent. Portraiture is something that I struggle with, that I want to improve on. I love botanical illustration. I want to do a complementary color scale. You can see all these things here. Painting on dark backgrounds, doing a color wheel, doing a color chart where one color is a dominant, doing a collages, doing small scale paintings, doing large scale things, doing color removal images. These are all options that you can do. If you're someone who does a lot of figure work, doing anatomy studies and breaking it down by body part is also a great thing. Sometimes I do this list and I have over 100 items on here. What you're going to do now is the fun part. Now you're going to go over and get yourself a little dice. If you're someone who likes tabletop role-playing games, getting your D20 out is really fun. Every time you're like, I don't know what to work on today, I don't know what to make today, you're going to go to your list. You're going to pick a random number between 1 and 7 for your materials because I have 7 items on here. You're going to do it for however many materials you have. So let's just do a D8 right here. I got a 2. So my next objective would be to use gouache paint. And then I'm going to go over to my materials list. I've got 23 items on here, but let's use a D20 for now and we'll just go all the way up to the small scale. All right, number 6. So what I would work on today, I would work on my gouache paint, and then I would work on a botanical illustration in gouache paint. You see how that works? With any number of materials you now have a different variant on one of these skill lists, and that is going to make sure you always have something to work on. When you work on your skills, you're working on your art in totality. You're working on the whole future of your art. And that's fun. That's exciting. And you will be surprised at how much creativity just jumps out of your brain when you start painting as if you're training. When you train your art, when you train your creativity, it's going to get better and it's really exciting. And that's always going to make sure that you always have something to work on. Let's do another one. Let's roll another D8. Let's see what do we get. Number 7. So for this one, I would work with my inks, and then I would do number 8. Number 8 is line consistency. So I would get my inks out, and in my sketchbook, I would work with line consistency with my inks. I would get my brushes, and I would try and make the same kind of line over and over and over again, trying to get different hatching, trying to get something that's the same and really consistent. And that's something I want to work on. That's something that's needed in my art to improve my work. Do you see how fun this is? With the art improvement list, you take one item from your skills list, you take one item from your materials list, you put it together, you have endless combinations. You will never run out of things to work on. It might not be the most inspiring thing when you first do this list and you're just like, okay, I gotta make a gouache painting of a botanical illustration. I mean, that sounds really like a good time to me, but maybe it's uninspiring to you that day. In that case, you need to do even more research onto why you're feeling so bad about your artwork, and maybe some journaling would be in order, but you can make anything fun. If I were to do a gouache painting with botanical illustration, I would pick up some local flowers that were in my neighborhood, and I would just paint them then and there. I think it would be so fun to do. All of these items, every time you add something to your list, a new material, a new skill, you want to break things down into their smallest increments. Niching down this list makes the list even more exciting. So instead of just saying oil painting, maybe I'll say Zorin palette oil painting, or maybe I'll say neutrals oil painting, or candy pop color oil painting. You know what I'm saying, right? Instead of just saying portraiture, maybe it's like dog portraiture or children portraiture or something else. And maybe instead of doing figure drawing as your skill list item, you do costumed figure drawing. The more specific with you get, the better it is. And the more you add to this list over time, the more exciting the list is going to become. Use a random number picker, use your dice, use whatever you'd like, and get to work. When you train your skill and creativity, when you train your artwork, and you train your hands and your eyes and what you're seeing, you are becoming the artist. You are becoming someone who thinks like an artist and acts like an artist. Not just someone who's dilly-dallying with art supplies, but someone who's truly wanting to get better at this trade. It's a skill, and you can improve too. I want to see your lists for the art improvement list. Will you tag me at stephaniescott.art? I'll put a link to my Instagram below. I want to see what you have made with your list. I want to see what's on your skills, what you want to learn. If you're starving for ideas for what to add to your skills list, look for things that are like beginner drawing exercises. And don't let your ego get in the way of trying to get better. Sometimes you I am beyond a beginner thing. If you've run into an exercise somewhere on the internet and it feels like, oh no, I'm too good for that, you should absolutely do that one. Do the things you feel reluctance. Do the things you feel resistance against. And that's going to improve your work so much more. And it's going to be exciting. It's going to be good. Let's make art together, yeah? Earlier today, I wanted to do a step gradient, and I got my gouache paint when I rolled my dice, and I made these little guys. Look at these little step swatches and color swatches. Aren't they fun? When I started this day, when I started looking at these paintings and I was just at my blank page, I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do. But then I did the list and I rolled for it and I was like, boom, look at this. 3 illustrations, done. Time got away from me. It was so much fun. So tag me in your list. I'll have the Canva template for this one in the description, but do it in your sketchbook. It's really easy and convenient because then you can look at it whenever you need it. Because I know you, artist, you don't go anywhere without your sketchbook, right? If you need help with your list, if you need help coming up with ideas, just ask me in the comments. I'll reply and I'll help give you some things to work on, or maybe we can talk on Instagram. Let's improve our skills. Let's get better. Let's never be frustrated about not knowing what to do ever again. Yeah? Sounds great. All right, make good choices, everyone. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. You just gotta improve your work. Yeah, 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 yeah.